welcome back to the Cloud and Digital Human-Centered Transformation series. I am your host, Nopi Mubaiwa, from the PwC Experience Consulting team, where we are dedicated to understanding, designing, and building better human experiences. Now, this is our third episode. We started off our first episode speaking about the importance of understanding tech-led changes in businesses. We then followed up by speaking about how exactly are we solving the right problem. And today we're going to be speaking about how can we execute quality through human-centered change. Now, I don't know about you, but I am so excited with our two guests who are going to be joining us today, who are both technology partners from Cloud and Digital. We have Dave Ives and Tshifhiwa Makhari, who are going to be sharing a wealth of knowledge with us. So, gents, before we kickstart, how are you feeling today? Give me one word.
I'm going to keep with exuberant.
Got you.
Excited.
Exuberant and excited. I think those are great ways to describe this conversation. So let's not waste any more time. And Tshifhiwa, I'm going to start with you. And the question really is, how can businesses meaningfully collaborate with their customers, understanding their needs and their perspective to shape products and services that are being designed and delivered?
Thanks, Nopi, for that question. I think, first of all, businesses like ourselves need to keep in mind that at the end of every product that's developed are actual people with emotions. So when organizations are designing solutions, they should try not to focus on designing solutions to solve a particular problem, because central to all problems are actual people, people with emotions. So they need to take those considerations, they need to take that into consideration when building and designing solutions.
So Tshifhiwa, what you've just said has reminded me of when I went to training, and it was about how can we adopt an agile mindset? And a part of that was asking ourselves, how do we shift from being product focused to actually being people focused? And Dave, I'm quite interested to hear your thoughts on what would you say the benefits are of co-creating with customers, with clients, with partners? And how can companies start to want to embed a culture that values that input from our external collaborators?
Yeah, and I think just adding on to what Chief was talking about in terms of how people are using technology to understand. So they're instrumenting things a lot more nowadays. So while you're building the tech, you're instrumenting and getting feedback on how that product or solution is being used. And I think that's really important to start with that end in mind, because that's constant feedback. And you can see that now with many of, especially in the tech industry, insurance industry, financial services, and even to the fact that there's so much diagnostics going in the car that you're driving every single day. And the products and services start to get tailored around those sort of experiences the customers are really going through. And then just talking about a culture of bringing in an external perspective, I always say that needs a bit of distance. So sometimes, solutions to problems are not found by the people that created them. So there might be a legacy organization with legacy tech. There's lots of inherent processes, inherent resistance to change. Like the corporate immune system kicks in and says, no, I don't want to, I want to fight this. So I think sometimes having that perspective from an outside in, not only looking at the product and the services, but, and I say just not only the product, but the services, the ecosystem, how you could restructure that business to be more effective and efficient at servicing the customer is going to be really important. And as being an agilist, we talk about openness, transparency, caring for our people. We care for our people by giving them clarity, by giving them an understanding of what they should be doing to service our customers in a better way. And I think that's really important. And I think I also want to talk a bit about what I call, it's kind of understood as tech intensity in the industry. There is so much tech that's coming. We're seeing another massive wave. We're going to talk a bit about that a little bit later. And I think this is just being amplified by so many of the tech companies buying into what's happening in the current, we're evolving very, very quickly. And it's really difficult for many companies to consume this tech and take advantage of it. So I think it's quite often we're in the position to help our customers understand that ecosystem outside in view. We've got some experiences of our own tech transformation internally. And that's a good example where I often have our CIO come and talk to other CIOs about how he's experienced this tech transformation in our firm and how we've had to adopt and change. And I think about that's important because we can't go talk to our customers about change if we're not change fit. So I think that's an important sort of area to think about it. And we often also take an external perspective on what we could be doing better. So benchmarking against your peers is okay, but sometimes you can also learn from other industries. You can learn from an external perspective. So I think it's really important to think about that.
Yeah. And I love what you've said about tech intensity, right? I mean, tech is accelerating almost faster than lightning. And I think what's important to then understand, and Tshifhiwa, I'm going to direct this to you, is how can businesses then adopt approaches where they're using emerging technologies, but they're still not overshadowing, the importance of that human experience?
And that's a very critical element to ensure that they bring the people that they're developing this technology for along the journey. And I mean, human beings are emotional people, right? And they often make decisions based on how they actually feel. And in this instance, if they're adopting technology, they need to know that this technology is intuitive, it's simple to use, is helpful, and ultimately it enhances their day-to-day job and makes them deliver their solutions better.
Yeah. And I think, Dave, if you can also comment on that. And just before you do that, then I think what's really important is this whole process of continuous learning, right?
Yeah.
Tech is accelerating, but we need to continuously learn how we can shift from being product focused to being people focused and creating the utmost value. And what I want to understand from you is how can companies then create environments where, there's this culture of ongoing learning and continuous exploration?
And I think that's also quite a difficult thing, because if you're stuck in a process and now you have to now learn something new, etc. I always joked about, when I used to work at Microsoft, the customers, I only use 10% of Excel, but your 10% is different to your 10% is different to my 10%. So you kind of think about it. And yet when they got together, they would learn different things from each other and then maybe solve problems together. And that's kind of expanded. Now we've got the co-pilots, but you need the human in the loop. You can't just have the Excel macro is not going to run by itself. It needs the person with the smarts, the understanding, the process, the emotional intelligence to make decisions. There's a whole bunch of things that are important to that. So you can't extricate people from that process, and we're not going to be automating everything. We just need to be very careful about thinking that suddenly agents are going to be running around in this new agentic world, solving business problems. I think we must be very super, super careful about that. I think that, and we always say that, is that we're not scared of AI. We're scared of the person with AI beating the person without AI, as an example. So that is a continuous learning journey, because these things are getting better and smarter in the context of the process. We also have to govern these things. We have to be super, super careful. Models can drift. They can, we're going to get more, you have to have explainability. You have to have trust. You have to have governance. You've got to manage these things a lot more carefully. You need the guardrails. So while we're learning and while we're growing and testing, we also need to have the guardrails that we don't put risk into any business and we don't put risk to any people as well. Prompt shielding, offensive language. There's lots of things that can happen with these things. And while this technology is really, really useful and will change the way that we potentially work, we also need to learn and grow and adapt. I think I like what your team's doing with the Studio Fridays and the testing of stuff. We're trying to infuse that a bit more into our team. I think but you have to be curious. So one of the things is you have to hire people that are curious. You have to hire, so your hiring has to challenge. You have to change the way that the sorts of people you bring in. You need those people that are dogmatic and going to solve the problem in the particular, but you also need to start thinking about the different shifts of hiring and different capabilities bringing to the team. And diversity is really important. Like if you think about diverse thinking, diverse ways of learning. Some people are more, they stand back and they want to know this thing before they touch it. Other people jump at it and they just want to make things happen, and they drive everybody in the organization mad by adopting new technology. So we need to blend that. So when I talk about that diversity of thinking and way of working, it's critical. And we must accept people that are going to use technology in different ways. And that's quite important. It's not IT driving that, business drives that. And we need to bring that culture of learning and growth. And IT can learn from business and vice versa.
Sure. I love what you've just said. And I'm so excited about this, because as a Gen Z, constantly wanting to understand.
What are we then? What are we?
Uh,
Are we like Gen Watts? What are we, like baby boomers? Hey, I'm just going to just check in with you now, you know? This is like a thing that it goes on.
I'm
Hey?
just sorry, I had to say that.
Oh,
I
no,
just had
okay,
to.
no, that's all good. That's fine.
So based on what you've said, Dave, I'm quite curious. We've spoken about having that agile mindset. We've spoken about diversity. We've spoken about needing to hire people who are curious and, who want to actually shake what we know as the world today. And, Tshifhiwa, maybe you can, just share a little bit of what does it mean to have an actual agile mindset? And I would like actually both of you to answer. What does it mean to have an agile mindset? But then more so, what does it mean to then leverage new technologies with that agile mindset to create quality through human-centered change?
Yeah, thanks for that, Nopi. I think really important to keep in mind that by definition, agile places people at the core of its design. And principles such as collaboration, continuous improvement, adaptability really allow teams to enhance customer satisfaction.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And Dave, maybe just piggybacking off of that, what does it mean to then actually do agile?
Yeah. And I think what's more important for me is a lot of companies going to do agile at the top. They've got the tools, the DevOps and Jiras and blah, blah, and they collect a lot of stuff. But being agile, and that is so much more important. So if you are about openness and collaboration and you're seeing it not happening, you're able to call it out quickly. So a lot of companies are adopting different methodologies around agile, but at the core, the principles are really important, right, Chief? I think that's right. And if we look at that, that's going to be critical. It could be, Scrum at scale and safe, and we don't really care, but you've got to take the people on the journey with you, and you've got to make sure that your teams are operating within those principles. And principles are critical to anything. Whether you're changing an ERP system or building a new solution or building a customer experience environment, those principles are going to be true. And I just think, as AI becomes more and more important, I think we need to be super, super careful about how we adopt the AI into those principles as well, how we learn from each other, how we grow, different styles, different methods, bringing in all the things we spoke about as well is going to be critical. So I think for us, being agile and doing agile is like that iceberg. The doing piece is what you see on those dashboards. The being is part of your culture of agile. And that is really more difficult to get embedded into that space of continuous learning. So yeah, it brings it all together.
And really, Nopi, to enhance quality delivery, organizations and teams that are able to embrace that culture of continuous learning, are going to ensure that they're able to embed that in all of their development and delivery.
Well, guys, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. I've really enjoyed learning from you. We've spoken about what it means to have tech-enabled businesses. We've spoken about what it means to solve for the right problem. And today we've really shown you what it means to execute quality through human-centered change. So thank you for joining me. I am Nopi Mubaiwa, your host from the PwC Experience Consulting team, where we are dedicated to understanding, designing, and building better human experiences. See you on episode 4.